This is Amy Jenner. Thank you for your company. We're going to cross live to Washington shortly to discuss this Hillary Clinton position opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. First, though, I'm joined on the program by Labor MP, the member for Melbourne Ports, Michael Danby. Michael, thanks very much for your time. You've got some real concerns about Australia's shift, I guess, strategic shift when it comes to the conflict against Daesh, particularly the fact that Australia says in the short term that Assad should be accommodated, essentially, and you're also suggesting Julie Bishop wants to normalise relations with Iran. I guess the question is to you, isn't this fundamentally about working with the lesser of two evils when you've got the so-called Islamic State in that region?
Look, we certainly have to work against Islamic State, and if we were to arm and train the Kurds in the north of Syria, they could probably be in Raqqa, the capital of Islamic State, in 2 weeks' time. Doing that is a very sensible suggestion, Kieran, because, of course, Raqqa is the source of where all of these international IS incidents, including the ones in Sydney, eventually emerge from. That's where that evil Australian who's working with Daesh, Cambodia, is based. But I've got a map here, and it very clearly shows that Daesh is in the eastern desert, and the places that Putin is bombing is in fact in the green areas where the pro-Western, some of them Islamists, but non-Daesh rebels are based. They said before, the Russians and Iranians, that it was a choice between the terrorists or Assad. It's too simple. It wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. The worst thing about it is that it makes the thing worse. It will make the situation worse, Kieran.
But Michael Danby, my question to you is, are there any moderates left fighting, or are they the likes of Jabhat al-Nusra, the al-Qaeda affiliated group? And the point that's been made to me by a number of analysts is that all the moderates are in Europe, that they've fled to Europe. They're the refugees.
No, that is untrue. There are the parts that I showed you on the map. The green areas are very much have the involvement of the Free Syrian Army. And look, I'm not here as an advocate for for them. All I'm saying is that giving Australia's imprimatur to the Russian bombing campaign against the main non-Daesh rebels is not something Australia should do. It's not in Australia's interests to have an Iranian crescent from Lebanon through to Iran. It's not in Australia's interest to have a Russian no-fly zone over Syria. Now the Turkish and American and Israeli air forces have to get Mr. Putin's permission to move anywhere. If there is a supply from Iran to Hezbollah of those heavy rockets that they're sending to bomb Israel, the Israelis now have to ask Mr. Putin's permission. I don't think it's in Australia's interest to have consulates here in Australia set up by Julie Bishop as a reward to the Iranians.
Why not this argument, though, where John Kerry seems to be of this view, certainly Julie Bishop is of this view, that all options should be on the table, including, at least in the short term, while he is a butcher, no doubt about it, accused of war crimes himself, but at least in the short term, that they support the Syrian regime, and then there be some transition to a more palatable leadership alternative in the medium term, because surely the worst case scenario is that you have IS taking the whole of that country.
Yes, but the Russian intervention is based on the fact, Kieran, that the non-Daesh, the non-IS rebels were being successful. So I don't think that that prospect is likely. There's every reason, and the opposition, as you know, has supported the government in continuing to oppose Daesh, which is a threat to Australia in the eastern deserts of Syria. But we're only making things worse by attacking 80% or supporting the attacking of the 80% of the Syrian population, which is Sunni Muslim. In fact, this is just going to make things worse, the Russian attacks. There are more refugees who are going to leave Syria. What we need to do is to do what the Turks proposed and what Tanya Plibersek has agreed, is to have a no-fly zone over this northern area, a humanitarian corridor where the UN agencies should work. That's what we should be negotiating with the Russians, where the Syrian people can flee into their own country and not out of it.
All right. Michael Danby, thanks so much for your time this morning. I appreciate it. We're going live now.